Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Nairobi. It's great to see so many of you gathered here today. I regret that I'm not able to be with you in person, but I'm very privileged to be able to address you virtually. As many of you are aware, 50 years ago, the UN Conference on the Human Environment took place in Sweden and led to the founding of UNEP. Sweden has long been a critical partner for UNEP and a leader on the global environmental agenda. In June this year, Sweden hosted the Stockholm Plus 50 meeting to reflect on what multilateral action has done for the environment in the past 50 years and to discuss how to tackle the challenges ahead. I'm very pleased to know that we have accomplished much for the environmental agenda in this past half century. Together, we have delivered the science to strengthen policy making to protect the environment. Through environmental multilateralism, we have set up global frameworks to mend the ozone layer, phase out leaded fuel, protect endangered species, mitigate climate change, and reduce marine pollution and deforestation. And for this, let's take a moment to acknowledge our collective efforts. But friends, we have a lot more to do. Our planet, humans' only home, is in peril. Billions of our fellow humans are suffering under the weight of the triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. Europe, where you are now, has experienced the worst droughts, heat waves, and wildfires the continent has seen in decades. Pakistan and other parts of the globe have been hit by devastating floods. Rising food and fuel prices are wreaking havoc on our global economy. Sadly, those who are bearing the brunt of this crisis are the most vulnerable and have done the least to contribute to it. We know very well that we are in a climate emergency, a code red for humanity, as our UN Secretary General put it recently. UNEP's research shows that the world may be heading for a 2.7-degree temperature rise by the end of this century. But we can't be pessimistic. We don't have the luxury of being despondent. Too much is at stake. Instead, let's focus on how, through cooperation and grit, we can slash emissions and make progress. A few months ago, we celebrated a critical milestone in our slow march towards building a more sustainable future. In July, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution that declared the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, a right for all. The resolution was 50 years in the making. It was the result of the hard work of member states, civil society organizations, indigenous peoples groups, and young people around the world. And our thanks go out to each and every one of them. While the UN resolution is not legally binding, that will take time, it has a profound effect on people's understanding of their rights. The resolution sends a clear message to those in power. Nobody has the right to take away nature, clean air and water, or a stable climate from us. As David Boyd, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment said, and I quote, "Having a right to a healthy environment changes people's perspective from begging to demanding governments to act," end of quote. So, from Brazil to Indonesia and the United States to South Africa, people are using rights-based litigation to demand environmental justice. Research shows that the number of climate change litigation cases has surged in the last 4 years, and in 2021 stood at 1,550 cases in 38 countries. The passing of the new resolution should further propel this momentum. But let me add a word of caution. While we celebrate this year's historic UN resolution, let's not forget that it needs to be backed up by policies and actions to make real progress. We need to further strengthen the environmental rule of law at the national level. Environmental crimes that drive biodiversity loss and deprive communities must be stopped. Failure to fully implement and enforce environmental law is one of the greatest challenges to mitigating climate change, reducing pollution, and preventing widespread species and habitat loss. And here is where the UN Global Compact has a critical role. Both public and private sectors need to collaborate to ensure an equitable transition. But this will require rethinking business as usual models that drive the wrong outcomes for people and planet. It will require accounting for negative externalities and at the same time mobilizing private financing at a large scale towards environmental goals, which can then open up new spaces for business innovation and opportunities. Yes, businesses have contributed to the triple planetary crisis, but the private sector also has the resources, capacity for innovation, and global reach to drive the solutions. The business case for adopting sustainability has never been stronger. We must work together to fast track to a circular economy. Today, only 8.6% of world economy is considered circular. The coming decade is crucial. We need to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030 and reduce net emissions by 2050. We need to reform how we eat, live, build, and power our lives to achieve carbon neutral, nature positive economies. We need to rethink how we produce, consume, and discard. We need to move away from linear models and towards circular economies which eliminate waste and pollution, which keep materials in use and regenerate natural systems. Building a global circular economy is not just good for the environment. It makes perfect business sense. It can generate US $4.5 trillion in annual economic output by 2030. Building a circular economy could reduce the volume of plastics entering our oceans by over 80% by 2040, and it could reduce virgin plastic production by 55%, saving governments US $70 billion by 2040. Sustainable and inclusive business models could unlock economic opportunities and generate up to 380 million jobs, primarily in developing countries. UNEP is increasingly engaging with the private sector to deliver on our collective ambition. We provide business with the science and data tailored to support a just transition. The UNEP Finance Initiative works with over 200 banks and 29 leading insurers to align global finance behind the goals of the Paris Agreement. The fact that you are gathered here today proves beyond doubt that business can and are engaging as partners on the environmental agenda. So, as you enter your discussions, I encourage you to also think about how businesses can participate in and drive the agenda at other upcoming meetings this year, including COP27 in Egypt, COP15 in Canada to address biodiversity loss, COP19 in Panama to protect endangered species, and the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee meeting in Uruguay to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. The road ahead of us is not easy by any means, but as the legacy of the past 50 years shows us, when we travel it together, we can go far. Thank you, and all the best.